Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Christelle Felix. I'm joined by my colleague, Tiffany Peterson, and we're half of the executive team of LupusChat, and we're going to be moderating for you today. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us as we talked about donating samples for research. Patient participation is crucial for advancement in research. Data and samples that patients donate, they're what drive research and ultimately lead the way for better treatments and better standards of care for various autoimmune diseases, including lupus. As you all know, LupusChat is a major advocate of medical research, and we strive to share the latest news and resources about lupus research to our community. So the focus of this webinar is to educate our lupus community about an available option for lupus patients to contribute to lupus research and to help others within our community. So joining us as presenters today are Kate Boylan and Mike Delahanty. Kate is the Vice President of PSG Donors, and Mike is the Director of Donor Recruitment. And just so you know, there will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation, so we encourage you to save all your questions and share your questions with us. And we would like you to please use the Q&A function on Zoom for this purpose. So Mike and Kate, the floor is yours.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, everyone. It's really great to be here. Thank you for having us. Thank you for letting us co-host our very first webinar with PSG and LupusChat. We're really excited to do this. And I'm really honored to be here with Mike Delahanty, our Director of Donor Recruitment at Plasma Services Group. He did a really wonderful job putting this presentation together, and I'm very excited to jump into it with you. And because we're Plasma Services Group, we want you to know our diagnosis. Your diagnosis is our focus, and we're going to start out with a little intro video, just a brief overview about what we do, and then we'll get into it in a little bit more detail.
Have you ever wondered what good can come from your diagnosis? The medical industry relies on donors with recent diagnosis or autoimmune conditions who are willing to donate plasma. Some autoimmune conditions are so rare, we recruit our donors nationwide. The first step in qualifying to become a paid plasma donor is to complete our online donor form at psgdonors.com. Our team will contact you and provide detailed information on the qualification process. If qualified into our donor program, you will be compensated with a minimum of $200 per donation. As an FDA-registered facility, your safety is our #1 priority. Unlike regular blood donation, plasma collection is a little different. During this process, the liquid part of the blood, known as plasma, is separated from the red blood cells using an automated machine. Once the separation process is complete, the red blood cells are returned to the donor and your plasma begins to regenerate within 24 hours. The donated plasma is then used to make test kits for diagnosis. Medical research, product development, and manufacturers rely on antibody-rich plasma to diagnose diseases and further research and development for new and better test kits. So why should you donate? Because $200 per plasma donation helps offset medical costs, and you can take pride in the fact that your participation profoundly affects the health and well-being of millions all over the world. And most importantly, your identity is kept strictly confidential. We value you as a vital link in the diagnostic process. You can make a difference, one donation at a time, by changing the future with research today.
And so for the overview of the discussion, I'm going to introduce Plasma Services Group and just give you background about our company. I know the video gave you a little bit, but I want to really focus on the diagnostic part of research, which is Our primary focus, I know a lot of other recruitment companies are looking at like treatments and therapies, but we very much specialize in the diagnostic niche for medical research. We were going to talk about why your diagnosis is so important to us and why we want you because of your diagnosis, and we wouldn't turn you away as a result. I know a lot of blood collection places, they're always looking for, they say, like healthy donors. And if you have lupus or are on certain medications, you can get turned away from donating blood or plasma at those facilities. And then I'll also talk about the benefits of donation. That's the benefit to the compensation that we do for donors, as well as the potential benefit to the diagnostic industry and to other people with lupus, not just in the country, but like the video said, across the world. We sell samples and plasma to companies all over the world to make better detection kits for lupus. And then Mike will take over and he's going to talk to you about a future for lupus diagnostics. He's going to get into the specifics of how you donate, like how we start out with a blood sample and then how that can then translate into a plasma donation, and how we have two programs, a biobank program where researchers have access to your samples, and then a specialty plasma donation where your plasma would actually be used to make test kits. He'll also go over our safety and confidentiality protocols, and then we'll do a joint Q&A answer session. And once more, if you have questions during this presentation, please use the Q&A function in Zoom, and we can get to all those questions at the end of the presentation. And thank you again for being here. All right, so Plasma Services, who are we? We're a company who focuses almost exclusively on patients who have rare diagnoses. Our specialty really is in autoimmunity. We recruit people who have lupus, scleroderma, and antiphospholipid syndrome. And as in most autoimmunity, there's a lot, it's like a mosaic. So a lot of people have more than one autoimmune diagnosis. So we focus on recruitment and we try to create this link between the diagnostic industry, so people who are making test kits for these diseases or disorders, and you, the patient. And what we've done, and Mike has been so amazing at this, is create a dialogue and connection with you, the patient. So you can give a blood sample to our biobank. We then store that for researchers to come to us. And if they're making a new test kit for lupus and they need to know if it's working, they'll say, hey, PSG, we need, 100 lupus patients. And we can say, yes, we have them. Or they may come to us and say, I need 100 lupus patients who have this autoantibody, but not this one. We have a lab on site. So when we get your sample, we test it in our lab. We're not a diagnostic lab, so we can't provide that result to patients. It shouldn't impact your treatment in any way. It's just for research and informational use only for the companies making those test kits, just to make sure that they're creating accurate diagnostics, that they have, a test result that they can compare it against. And it's a really beautiful synergy between, patients, PSG, and the companies making test kits for lupus. So once more, we provide these samples globally, not just within the US. And it's really important because a lot of companies who are making test kits abroad, they need to get their kits cleared through the FDA in order for them to be used to diagnose you in labs. And they really need US populations as well. So they can say like their test kit works great, on people in Switzerland, but they want to make sure that they have access to a US population of people who have lupus and other diagnoses. So that's what we do. And why is your diagnosis our focus? Lupus is a disease that you guys all know. It occurs as a response of an autoimmune response when your antibodies start attacking your own cells or organs. It's really difficult to diagnose because its signs and symptoms can mimic those of other ailments, fatigue, rashes, and it can take a really long time to diagnose. And I know some people do like kidney biopsies and everything else. And one of the big driving forces for the diagnostic industry is to make detection earlier and easier and hopefully less invasive. I know. And so one request that we frequently get from researchers is they want to develop new blood tests that look at antibodies associated with lupus, and can they find, you know, an antibody that is more prevalent than, like, you know, dsDNA is a common one, but people can have, you know, Smith or RMP or all these other antibodies. And we get contacted by a lot of companies that are making these new test kits, and they need access to patient samples to see if they can identify new antibodies and also to see how their kit is performing as they develop it. And then in addition to the research, there's this really big need for plasma donation. And that's kind of like a blood donation, but your red cells are returned to you and more volume of plasma can be collected. Plasma is the liquid portion of your blood. It contains antibodies and other proteins. And because we're just collecting the plasma, you can donate safely up to 2 times per week, which lets us collect much more plasma. And then the companies use that large plasma collection to make test kits. Specifically for the test kit, it's used to make what's called a control or calibrator in a test kit. And so when your sample goes to like a Quest or a LabCorp, in order to ensure that the test has run correctly, they have to include a control with each test. And that is what the plasma that would be collected from you would be used for. It would be accompanied every test that's run, you know, across the US to make sure that that test ran correctly. And that's why it's so important to have people with lupus. So benefits of donation. A big benefit is that we do compensate you for your time and effort associated for each blood and plasma donation. So that would include, you know, compensating you for food, for traveling, compensating and covering any plane fare or rental car or hotel that's needed. And then also giving the participant or patient $200 for the time and effort associated with sitting in the chair and going through it. It typically can take anywhere from, you know, I would say 1 hour to 2 hours. And we just think for all the effort that goes into that the participant should be compensated for that. We also have very flexible plasma donation dates based on your availability. We fly most people or bring most people into a local center in Pennsylvania that we work with that specializes only in this specialty collection. So they only collect people who have diagnoses from, you know, many autoimmune diseases, and the center is really good at, you know, maybe blood flow may not be so great that day, or, you know, somebody may have cold hands because of Raynaud's. The center is really amazing at responding specifically to the needs of the donor that day. And once more, that extra money that you earn can help offset medical expenses, because we know that the cost of medical care just keep going up and up. Yeah. And once you donate a blood sample, you, at any time, we keep your information in our database. We don't share it, but you then automatically are eligible to participate in future draws. So it's not just a one-time collection where we take it and store it in a biobank. We have a lot of companies that come to us, and this is what's so beautiful about having this direct to patient relationship. We can't predict accurately where diagnostics are always going to go. Right. And so we can store, you know, blood samples, but what if wearables become the next, you know, path of diagnostics, or people want to start using saliva or sweat or something less invasive than a blood draw? You know, we've got a lot of companies come to us and saying, hey, I need this type of sample, you know, within the lupus population. And what's so amazing in having this relationship is that we can call you back and say, hey, we have your initial blood sample, we have your contact information. Would you be interested in participating in additional studies, you know, to make diagnostics better in the future? And then the medical diagnostic benefits are very there as well. The diagnostic community comes to us all the time. We're like a first line for, hey, you know, I want to get this new kit cleared through the FDA. Can you guys provide us samples to show how our kit is performing against, you know, other kits, if it's better, you know, if it's up to snuff, all of that. And it just having access to those samples, it ensures that the diagnostics that are getting made are better than the ones that came before, or at least as good at, which is really important. And then having access, like I said, directly to patients lets R&D teams develop new types of diagnostics that can hopefully detect, lupus earlier potentially, or look for new markers within lupus. And it also ensures that those test systems are really accurate. So that's the benefit to the medical diagnostic community. Mike, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, of course. So, hello, my name is Mike Delahanty. I'm the Director of Donor Recruitment here at Plasma Services Group. I'm going to take over for Kate. She did a beautiful job really explaining the why and what behind Plasma Services Group and how the lupus community can certainly benefit from better diagnostic research. Thank you again to the ladies of LupusChat. They've been wonderful. Thank you for giving us this platform to co-host with you. And then also introducing us to your amazing members. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit more about lupus community benefits. The more readily available materials are to make test kits, the more affordable testing becomes, which is really important. So access to more lupus donor samples results in the following: better research cohorts, precise diagnostic and treatment, and successful outcomes for those diagnosed with lupus. So you could, even though your sample that you're submitting at the time may not be a direct impact immediately, it could help somebody down the line, which is really, really important for the advancement of diagnostic research. So, as many of you know, you probably have gone to several different doctors trying to get the correct diagnosis or not sure what you're sick with. And sometimes you're led down a little bit of a rabbit hole. This is to ensure that you can help somebody down the line to get more accurate testing and get on treatment faster. So let's discuss the future for lupus diagnostics. I pulled this quote from the director to the future directions of lupus presented by U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And I'm going to go ahead and read this quote for you. I thought it was really poignant for what we're discussing here today. Thanks to major advances in lupus research within the last 20 years, individuals with disease are benefiting from diagnostic tools that can detect disease for earlier in the process, before major tissue damage occurs. Additionally, these advances make it possible to categorize lupus as a chronic disease, since patients are benefiting from targeted, less toxic therapies. The ultimate goal of this plan is to identify needs and opportunities from both public and private organizations to continue to accelerate progress in lupus research to further improve quality of life of patients who have lupus. So that kind of piggybacks off of what I was saying on the last slide on how you can really help somebody with quality of life and getting the correct diagnosis by donating your blood and plasma. So how do you donate blood samples? Now, what I'm going to talk about in these next couple slides is the difference between donating blood samples versus donating plasma. So let's go ahead and start off with the at-home blood collection. This would be a small collection collected at your home via our mobile phlebotomy service. So I'm going to get into that now. So step one in this process would be complete an online donor form at psgdonors.com/donor-form. Once completed, I will be in touch with you to discuss the program and to get you consented. We are all of our consents, our blood sample consent is done under an internal review board, and that will be sent to you via DocuSign. Now, once you electronically sign off on your informed consent and hit finish, it automatically comes back to me. That gives me the go-ahead to send you out one of our donation kits. That will come via FedEx. It will have some draw tubes, draw instructions, and a FedEx return label inside. Now, we work with a nationwide phlebotomy service that will come actually to your home or office, whichever you'd prefer. They will administer that small blood draw, pack the kit up for you, and even drop it off at FedEx. So if you don't want to leave your house, you really don't have to, which is fantastic. The kit will include one of our PSG reloadable Visa debit cards. That will have $100 loaded onto it as a thank you for participating in this blood collection. We call it a biobank draw. That blood collection will be used to build an antibody profile that will then be stored privately and confidentially in our biobank and in our database. And that Visa debit card can be used anywhere Visa is accepted. You can also withdraw cash from it. So it's yours to keep. Anytime you donate with us, we'll go ahead and load money onto that card as a thank you for your participation. Now it's donation time. So when the phlebotomist comes, again, you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home. They will be a licensed phlebotomist and they contact you directly. So they're going to give you a call. They'll work with your schedule again to have that draw complete. And when they come out, they'll administer the draw. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes, and then they pack it up and then they send it back to us. Now, once we get it back, we will immediately begin testing. Our testing usually takes about 4 to 6 weeks before we can let you know if you've qualified for, say, more paid biobank draws that are done at your home, or if you've been matriculated into our PSG donor program. Now, I did want to mention, if you aren't qualified at first, you may be qualified for something down the line. Kind of goes along with what Kate was saying, is that all of that information is stored confidentially in our database, where if a researcher were to contact somebody like Kate and say, we need this population, we already have you on file where we can give you a call back and bring you back into the program. So it's not the end of the road if you get a letter or an email letting you know that you weren't qualified at this time. There's still plenty of opportunity for you to donate in the future. And now, how do you donate specialty plasma? This is a question that comes up a lot. As different plasma donation companies pop up in various areas, people are becoming more familiar with it. But when I started at PSG, I had no idea what plasma donation was. So it was really important for me to kind of get a grasp on it. So I'm really excited to explain that process to you. Once your at-home blood donation is delivered to PSG, again, we'll begin testing. It'll take about 4 to 6 weeks. And then if you're qualified in the paid plasma donation program, we'll begin some paperwork with you and get you ready to donate with us at our preferred donation center. So I think one of the best tenets of becoming a plasma donor is that we open a line of communication between us and your provider, your PCP or your provider. So we want to make sure that they sign off on what's called a physician approval. And that basically states that you're medically cleared for donation, but it also keeps that line of communication open between us and your provider so they are aware of what you're doing and make sure it's safe for you to donate. You will be asked to donate at our preferred FDA registered donation center, which is located in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania. And as Kate said, we do take care of all travel associated with coming to and from our donation center. So since we recruit nationwide, it could include a flight, your hotel, your transportation, whether it's a car service or a car rental. You would also be stipend $50 per day for food and then paid $200 per plasma donation. Now, typically for out-of-state donors, we would have you here for about 3 to 4 days and you would get 2 donations done within that time period. We do like our donations to, your donation, if qualified, to be completed relatively shortly after, given paperwork goes smoothly after you are qualified, but you are literally and figuratively in the driver's seat when it comes to visiting us. We try to be as flexible as possible with setting you up for donation time. Now, if you're not qualified, I had mentioned this a little bit before, but I really want to drive the point home to you that don't worry, we will retain your sample and information, and you may be contacted for future projects or studies. As Kate can point out, we constantly are going back to our bank, our biobank, and we are looking for certain cohorts, so certain donors, certain antibodies. So it's really, it comes at a random pace. But sometimes it can be pretty regular. But we oftentimes lean on our biobank and previous blood samples for moving forward with new types of donations. So let's talk about safety here, which is really, really important for not only us as an organization, but for first and foremost, our donors. Is blood sample donation safe? Yes, PSG works with a network of licensed phlebotomists across the U.S. They are required to follow all FDA and CDC COVID-19 guidelines when administering your draw. If you have a preference on the type of needle you use, please advise me, and I will certainly accommodate that for you. Now, is specialty plasma donation safe? Yes, plasma donations are one of the most highly regulated procedures in the American health industry. The entire process is aseptic, so all supplies used during the process are sterile and never reused. A medical professional will observe the entire donation, and you can stop the donation process at any time if you're not feeling well or you're uncomfortable. Though rare, some individuals may have adverse reactions to plasma donation that include bruising and swelling at the site where the needle enters the arm, lightheadedness, nausea, and fainting. Now, these are pretty rare cases, but again, we have an amazing phlebotomist that we work with that will take great care of you. I think the what separates us from a lot of different companies is that it's a very intimate situation at our preferred donation center. It's by appointment only. There is only one bed. If you would like to bring a friend with you into the donation center, you can certainly do that as well for any kind of support. But again, you are with our licensed phlebotomist, Angie. She is fantastic and she will take excellent care of you. Now, is my donation confidential? I think we've kind of driven this point home, but we really, really want you to understand and know that we do not sell or share any of your personal information ever. All of that is kept strictly confidential, and we respect your privacy. So if you ever wanted more information on our confidentiality policy, we could certainly send that over to you. But we keep all of our personal information strictly confidential for regulatory and research purposes. We may share demographic information such as age, sex, race, and medical history information like medications. However, your identity is always delinked. Your decision to participate in the program will not be disclosed to anyone other than the phlebotomy service used to collect your donation, and agencies such as the FDA that have the responsibility and authority to review records during an audit or blood establishment. So we take that very seriously, and we want to drive that point home again. We respect your privacy, and we will keep your donation strictly confidential, never to sell or share. That's it. So thank you so much for coming over to our webinar. We are happy to answer any questions. First and foremost, we'd like to thank you for your time and attention today. And then, of course, extend a special thank you to LupusChat for the chance to host this webinar and for all of their collaboration and efforts to make your diagnosis our focus. Now I'd like to open it up for a Q&A where you are free to ask any questions about our process, and we will do our best to answer all of your questions.
Hi, everyone. Well, before we go over to Q&A, we kind of just want to, Crystal and I kind of just want to sort of discuss our perspective as patients and how we feel about donating samples for research. So for me personally, as someone who has lupus nephritis, which is when your kidneys are affected by lupus, I have never been in a clinical trial because it has always disqualified me from participating. But I would say for the last 2 to 3 years, I've been donating blood, urine, and even saliva to a biobank that uses my samples to conduct lupus research. I really love the fact that even though I'm not eligible for a clinical trial, I am still able to participate and contribute to the present and future of lupus research.
Oh, you're muted, Christoph. There you go.
For myself, I would say that I think it's really important, just on a personal note, to be able to, as a patient, know that you're contributing to advancing things forward. I've participated in research and clinical trials in the past. I've participated in longitudinal research where they collect my blood every year for however many years. And I think it's really important for me to know that, you know, as I'm going through my own personal journey, I can contribute a little something that helps in research. I do know as well that, you know, any research, whether it's towards a new treatment, whether it's towards seeing how a combination of treatment works, none of that can happen without our samples as patients. In the preclinical research phase, I know research is done in test tubes and on animals, etc. But for, you know, for it to advance to the level where it can be used on us patients, it's definitely, our samples are definitely needed. I even remember when I had my kidney biopsy, they kept a little piece of tissue to be used for research. I think that's really exciting. So yeah, I'm really excited that, as we're learning more and more about research, we're able to find out ways such as this one that we can, really concrete ways for us to participate. We can open the Q&A. I actually would like to get us started with the Q&A part. I know that as lupus patients, it's a really, really common story how long and difficult it is to get a diagnosis, even before we start dealing with treatments that may or may not work. Just getting to the diagnosis is often a very lengthy and difficult journey. So I just wanted, Mike and Kate, if you can answer, the idea of having diagnostic test kits sounds amazing. We would like to know, in your opinion and in your work, how you think that can help with detecting lupus and also with treating lupus sooner.
Yeah. So if you're right, Mike, if I
Yeah, no, go
jump
ahead.
in here. All right.
Of course.
So I think that's almost every diagnostic company that I've talked to, that is a goal for any kit that they're developing or researching, is to make diagnosis more accurate, quicker, and also more affordable. But the only way that they can do that is to have access to as many samples as possible to see if the technology or the kit that they're developing is working and how it's working. Is it missing an antibody? Is there a new antibody out there? Just to speak very broadly, I had a very I was very excited about the project, and this happened about 3 years ago. I had a US based research university located in the South reach out to me, and they were developing something that they call a microarray test, which would test for literally hundreds of antibodies in one drop of sample. Because of the technology that they were developing, they could get, and I'm going to use a term called antigen. And an antigen is just anything that an antibody will bind to and bind to accurately. So they were developing this technology where there was a slide and there'd be hundreds of antigens, on the slide. They'd put the patient's specimen or blood specimen on it and see what's binding, and then go and look at that and let that guide their research as to, is this type of antigen, significant in detecting lupus, and can I detect it early? And the information that we collect, the medical histories that we collect, are so important for researchers too, because that then lets them know, okay, this is the blood sample that you have, but this person or patient has had lupus for this long. So, is the response that I'm seeing, is it a later antibody or an earlier antibody? And the only way they can know that is by having access to literally hundreds and hopefully thousands of lupus patients to look for those patterns and what is working and what isn't working.
Great. Now, we did
Thank
have some
you.
questions that were answered. If we want to go over those really quickly, just to get them on recording.
Sure.
See, Kate, you had answered a question about the age minimum.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Somebody asked, what's the minimum age? For us, it is 18. We do not collect pediatric samples, but many research universities do, in particular, because they have the correct review board to do that. There's a whole nother level of consent. And I would say that it's really important in children. So even though we don't collect them, look for research universities that do collect and need those samples. I don't want to, I feel terrible saying, no, we don't do it. It's just with the level of review, and we're not to the point where we want to quite go after pediatric samples.
Right.
Some companies do. I find that normally research universities and hospitals that have really, really long histories with their own internal review boards and developing that process and
Right.
consent are a great place to go to give those samples.
Excellent. Now, Tricia Santos had a great question about having any patient testimonials. Do we have any patient testimonials for our program and process? And about receiving a monthly infusion, could the infusion nurse complete the blood sample kit? Now, that's a great question. And I would be happy to provide some patient testimonials. We do have a few. I would need to curate them, and I would be happy to ask some of our donors who donate regularly to give a testimonial, just to explain the process to you a little bit from a patient perspective. That would be easy breezy, and I would be happy to do so. And then regarding infusions, if you would prefer your infusion nurse to draw your sample, they are more than welcome to do so. If there is a cost associated with using your nurse, just to let us know, so that we can make sure that they are taken care of for that or reimbursed for any of their services. But certainly we would be happy to let your infusion nurse donate. That does pose another question that I do want to address. If you are receiving infusions and you are qualified into our paid plasma donation program, we wouldn't have you donate until right before your next infusion. So, and that would obviously be with your doctor's consent. But if your doctor consents to you being able to donate plasma, we would just schedule it right before your next infusion. We wouldn't want to do it right after your infusion. Some people get them bi-weekly, some people get them biannually. So it really just depends on your schedule and also the consent from your doctor. And lastly, somebody asked, will this webinar be available to anyone who's registered? Yes, I know that we're going to probably put that on our PSG donor site. This is being recorded. I'm not sure I can speak for the Lupus Chat, for the ladies of Lupus Chat, but you can let us know where it will be living on your site as well.
We can definitely share the webinar link to the recording with the community.
Okay, great.
For everyone that wasn't able to join live.
Mike, I think we had another. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Right, I was going to mention that a lot of our community, they know us, but we would love if Mike and Cage could share information about PSG donors, website and social media, and other ways that they can connect and learn more.
Yeah, we can absolutely, and I can put it in the Q&A. I'm gonna have to do some, I'll get the links and put them up to, I think it was Juan's question. So I'll work on doing that right now. Thank you, Juan.
Okay, and on our side, we can also share a little later on how they can reach out to you as well.
Great.
Okay.
Do you want me to type those in, Kate?
I was gonna say, yeah, I can do
sure.
the donor form if you want to do IG and Facebook.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
So the first link that I just posted is a link to our online, it's our website, and it'll take you directly to our donor form, which, as Mike said, is the first step in this process, where you complete the form, and the medical questionnaire that we have will ask you about, like, your diagnoses, all of them, the relative dates, if you know how, what symptoms you're currently experiencing, medications. All of that information is really useful to researchers who are developing test kits, and that's why we ask that information. And then once you complete that form, Mike would be notified. It would come through to our database, and then he would reach directly out to you and walk you through all the next steps, including informed consent, how to get the donor kit, and everything else there. And then and Juan had another great question. I'll go ahead and answer that live right now. Juan asked, can multiple donations be done? And if so, what's the max and in what period of time? That's a really great question. Yes, multiple donations can be done. You can do up to 2 donations within a 7-day period with at least 1 full day of rest between donations. So I know that was a lot, but what that means is you can come to us if you're traveling, and we could get you accommodations for 3 to 4 nights close to the preferred donation center that we use. And you would, and we are really flexible with donor schedules. So let's say if travel was particularly hard and you do not want to donate the same day that you traveled because you're tired or you didn't get to hydrate enough, we would have you rest, do donation on the second day.
Right.
You would have 1 full day of rest. And then you would go in and do your second donation. And some people even want a little day of rest before they travel again. So we could factor that in as well. Some people prefer to get it, done as quickly as possible. There, a lot of donors who have donated with us for years. They'll come, they'll donate the first day, they'll like spend the night, do the 1 day of rest, donate the second time, and then travel right after they're done that donation. And it really all depends on donor schedule, comfortability,
Right.
and energy levels. And I would say if it's your first time donating with us, we would tend to encourage you to have more time just
Right.
to see how you
For
respond
sure.
during the process.
For
And
sure.
as Mike said, like our phlebotomist who works at our preferred donation center, she is really, really good with working for you. Like and I would just say be really honest with her, and she'll like walk you through like, okay, these are the best ways to hydrate, these are the best foods to eat to make you feel like you have energy. And if you're not feeling like particularly hydrated that day, let her know. She'll be like, you know what, let's get you some, to drink water, and then let's wait a little bit longer, like half an hour longer, to like start the process. She's
Right.
really amazing that way.
She's fantastic.
To give you a little bit of details, I've actually donated plasma with her multiple times. It was for a COVID-19 vaccine project we were working on. And it was I was nervous my first time doing it. I didn't think I would be because, like, I know this process really well. We talk about it. But for some reason, the day I showed up, I was really nervous, and she was just really wonderful about talking me through it in order to get me through the process like as quickly as possible as well. She would like tell me there's like a ball that you hold so you can pump your hand that'll help like your blood flow. And she was really good about just walking me through that process and made me feel really at ease. And so the next 3 times I did it, I had 0 worries. She was amazing. Yeah.
I received a question via direct message. Patients are interested in knowing is there a process where PSG donors work with the patient's physicians, or in terms of they just want to know what's the process to make sure that, physically and health-wise, this is something that they're able to do for people who've never donated blood.
Yeah, so we have a physician approval that when you're qualified into the program, I will take your doctor's name and number. If you would prefer, we prefer the doctor that knows the most about your medical history. So in your case, it probably would be your rheumatologist.
Yeah.
So we would then I send over the paperwork via fax, but I stay on it. So I will always I give them about a week to respond on their own, but then I start following up just to check in to make sure the paperwork's been received, find out when we would have it signed and sent back. But yeah, I send that paperwork over, and you're more than welcome to have a look at the paperwork once your donor form's complete. I'll be able to generate one of the physician approvals for you, and I can send it over. You're more than welcome to take it to the doctor yourself. It's not secret. We can certainly show you that paperwork as well. But I will be sending it over to the doctor via fax.
Okay. And is a doctor's signature approval required?
There's 3 questions on the physician approval that we ask. One is if you're medically cleared for donation. The second is how much you would like to donate in terms of frequency and volume. We suggest the FDA regulated amount, which is up to twice per week, and then it's based on body weight. And then the third is if we see any new or emerging antibodies, would they like to be contacted? So they have to check boxes for those 3 questions, sign and date. And then of course, if there's any updated medications, we would want them to update that in the medications box. Kate, were you going to
So,
say?
and yeah, I was going to say we do require a physician approval form to donate from all patients. We do know that some patients are newer in the process of being diagnosed, or maybe they're between doctors as well. So what we offer as a backup is there's a medical director that's associated, who is a physician and is associated with our preferred plasma donation center. So let's just say if the treating physician says that you are not medically cleared, we do not pursue it. But let's say we have a participant or a patient who, you know, is getting established with a doctor. What we do offer is you would have an appointment with the medical director of the facility, who would go through and have to sign that same physician approval form that we would send to your doctor. And just to be like, because we are really committed to the health and well-being of the patient, even when you come to us with your treating physician's sign-off form, for your first time donating, we also want you to see the medical director of the collection center, just to make sure that you are healthy enough to donate that day. And what the physician would do, he would go over your medication list, he would weigh you, he'd look at your pulse, he would look at your, you know, oxygen levels, just to make sure that you don't have a fever that day. And that so it's a little bit of a double check in that we want the treating physician and then the medical director of the center, your first time seeing you your first time coming in would have that appointment with you and go over that. And we also use it just in case, like I said, somebody is between physicians or early on and doesn't have that direct connection with a physician. But we do require it. No one gets in the chair without a physician approval form.
Got it.
Awesome. Okay, I see we have another question in the Q&A. Juan has asked, as a donor, would we know when our samples have been used? Is there any follow-up with what happens after we've donated?
So unfortunately, we're typically bound by NDAs, and the companies that we're working with, they're bound by NDAs, so they're not able to tell us where a lot of these samples are being used. We can typically connect the dots, like for plasma donation, for example. We're pretty certain, based on who's requesting the material, that is being used for manufacturing purposes. So you could be used as a positive control, a negative control, or a calibrator in a diagnostic testing kits. But broadly, no, unfortunately, we're not able to reveal where that patient sample went to.
We can definitely give you like broad stroke overview of how your sample will be used, but we can't tell you, you know, it was used in this study or it was used to make this test kit or that test kit. Also, our informed consent. I know a lot of people like it because we do send electronically. Please take the time to read it if you are in it. It really goes into how that sample will potentially be used. And as Mike said, even if your sample comes into our biobank and sits for a year or 2 years, we are really committed to this idea of a biobank or like a biorepository, I even call it like a bio library, because, you know, 5 years down the road, that sample could be really critical to research as new antibodies are being discovered. I mean, some of our biobank samples are 10 or even more years old, I would say. Well, maybe not quite that old, but collected like from 2015. And are getting, you know, used now in research. But we don't provide the donors with like a dossier of each each way that their sample was used. But we're more than happy to to answer generally how it would be used.
Okay.
It's an incredible snapshot in time, that biobank. It's an incredible snapshot in time for research.
I do have a follow-up question concerning the consent form. Would there be someone going over the consent form with the patient, making sure, you know, they fully understand, all their questions are answered, etc.?
So we typically just send it and have them read at their leisure. I am more than happy to go over the consent with them if they request that. We do also offer a translator. We offer people that need a translator. There's a translation signature box that they can sign off, so that they have gotten it translated for them, and that we are aware that they have been consented fully if they don't speak English as their first language. But I'm happy to go over the consent with them for sure.
So yeah, we don't typically like go over and read it out loud to the participant. But what we do the very first, and this is why I really like our process, because it really is donor oriented, and that Mike has done a beautiful job of tailoring it to the donor. When we get that online donor form saying, hey, I'm interested in being a donor, here's my information, Mike calls that donor back and goes over like everything that we're talking about now. He goes over it verbally. At the end of that conversation, he sends the informed consent for them to read at their leisure. And it does say on there, please, like, don't sign, or unless you've had like a chance to ask and have all your questions answered.
Sure.
Well, first I want to say thank you, Michael and Kate, so much for your time and for sharing all of this amazing information on how we as patients can participate in research. It's been really great, and thank you for being with us for this hour. Everyone, we just want to let you know to look out for the recording. We will have a summary. We will share information on how you can view this webinar after it's been recorded. And we will definitely be sharing info on how you can actually donate plasma in the following weeks. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was great speaking with everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.